Hello all, welcome to my talk today, Beyond Firefighters versus Safety Matches, where we will talk about growing the DevSecOps pipeline. Mandatory forward-looking statements. To be honest, being required to show these during a presentation for a few seconds is a lot less painful than having to get a talk to prove as a government official, so I'll take the mulligan for you all. So hello, I'm Amélie, Senior Technology Advocate here at Splunk. I've been with them since 2019. Prior to that, I spent a decade as a public servant, split up by a year at Disney. It happens, I literally needed a vacation, I guess. And by vacation, I mean working on the future of technology for one of the largest media conglomerates in the world. Bonus points for being able to say I went to Disneyland for work as research. During my time in the government, I worked for the Interior Department, Treasury Department, and left service as the CTO for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of the Inspector General. Oh, and I helped start the U.S. Digital Service while on rotation at the Office of Management and Budget at the White House, so that too. I'm mainly a security person in my career and tend to circle a lot in that community, including speaking and volunteering as a staff at a number of conferences, including multiple security B-side conferences and as a DEF CON goon, which brings me to my topic today. 3 years ago, I stood up at ShmooCon in Washington, D.C., adjusted my soapbox, and told the general establishment that the way they were trying to handle an important shortage, or shortcoming, was wholly wrong, and why they should listen to me. It made it easier that I was surrounded by friends and colleagues when I essentially did my best impersonation of Martin Luther nailing my treatise on the door of the Catholic Church in Washington, D.C. Most of that establishment tended to say that what you needed to do was to wave a magic wand and you can create or find talented security people for every organization and that everything was fine. Or that you can fix this by adjusting curriculum in schools, asking a passing UFO if they had any security pros they could lend planet Earth, or just wait it out until the rest of everybody's demand was met and start from there if you didn't want to fight for the talent. This, in fact, was not fine. I thought cooler heads would prevail. People would think a bit deeper about this problem and maybe it gets to solving some of those issues, either through policy or direct action. I know this is odd, but the more we force folks down a given and albeit narrow path, there's going to be some pushback and some pressure differential, kind of a back pressure, if you will. Some will consider this some level of gatekeeping, but it's more of an ensuring that those for which our recent policy to get as many people into cybersecurity to solve the pipeline problem may hit kind of a bottleneck. We may need some specialty talent. We may be forcing too many people down one path, creating some resistance, and possibly lowering bars for skills and salary that companies are willing to offer for some of the important expertise. It's good that we are catching up a little bit to the perceived talent shortage by addressing this earlier in education, training, and transitioning from other roles, but we need to do it smartly. This is similar to my astronaut problem from my prior talk, where the prestige role may have a limited payoff and a short lifespan, even after taking a lot of work and effort to get there. So conversely, with the rise of DevSecOps, which is not DevOps plus security, the idea that we may be putting too much on one skill set or role may also prove to be somewhat problematic. While there may seem to be limitless supply of folks who say they can do this job or want this job, this actually isn't the case. Plus, the same skills gap we find in security, we also find in these roles. And with that, are you then putting water or gasoline on that fire? It's not like there's an endless supply of these folks either, but many may find it easier to put a cap on than claim specialty in the particular role. So we want the skills pipeline to ever be refreshed and sustainable, but we don't want too much generalization to lose the depth of some skills and overloading of some roles. How do we find that happy medium, or do we want to? Is DevOps and DevSecOps something that's realistic and sustainable? Is it, at the very least, what we want and actually need, or is it just a fad everybody wants to do? Like, look at Tamagotchi and Beanie Babies. What's the care and feeding required to make this work? Namely, what are the skills we need to generally focus on, or are we running down the wrong path? Just like DevOps isn't stacking development on top of ops in the relation to the workload and responsibility, but it's sharing and enabling some of these capabilities in a single role. DevSecOps is moving and sharing skills and responsibility among a single role, but where does all of this, the rest of the stuff that got peeled off of the traditional stack, end up? This is where you allow for some specialization and the ability to focus and optimize and make efficient rather than having to build it all into one role, person, or responsibility. In short, it's okay not to be the wizard. It's okay to be an apprentice as well. DevSecOps is, again, not one plus, but also a balance of the various forces at play within the organizations for technology. Part of the finding of the balance between the as-is and the to-be, or the present and future state, is an assessment of the talent and your skills within the organization and what parts of it exist to make the transition easy, and which gaps are there that need to be supplemented or built up. Sometimes this is merely training those who are already there in some new skills. Others, it's finding entirely new resources to augment your team. The challenges with the skills augmentation is finding ways to add and plus up the folks you already have without overloading them with work and responsibilities. DevSecOps is about shared and balanced, not less and overloaded. So think of it this way. As you see here with the diagram being a tight Venn diagram where the skills and responsibilities generally overlap fully, there's still some specialty roles within each main category, but it's a tight weave elsewhere. You can approach a more comprehensive overlap as it begins to appear as just one circle, but there will always be just a few responsibilities that the original team may need to solely own, or as such, but may not have to actually do too regularly. Those diagrams on the right are typical organizational patterns I've observed in my multiple orgs that I've worked